Welcome to another Walter Football video. I'm Charlie Campbell, Senior Draft Analyst. Before we get going here, I suggest you click into the settings, speed it up to 1.25, 1.5, whatever you like. This week's mock, as usual, reminder, this is what I think teams will do, not what I think they should do. So anyways, on to the mock. First overall pick, Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, no-brainer. Absolute easiest decision for any general manager since Andrew Luck came into the league. But definitely this is a dream come true for the Jacksonville franchise to get a generational talent like Trevor Lawrence there at number 1 overall. If you click into the hot press below, I polled about 10 different people around the league from teams as to who's graded out higher between Lawrence and Luck. So some interesting stuff in there in that discussion as to kind of just how good of a prospect Trevor Lawrence is. So if you click in the links there, you can read that article. But definitely this is a dream come true for the Jags and makes the 1-15 season worthwhile. So next up, New York Jets, 2nd overall. I'm taking Penei Sewell, left tackle from Oregon. Give them a bookend tackle to go with Mekhi Becton. Jets would be in position here to hopefully move down if there's demand for the quarterbacks. The problem is, could be a situation similar to last year with Detroit at number 3, where there's just there isn't a trade partner there, and they aren't offering up a deal worthy to move down. So that's going to be a situation worth watching. The Jets, as far as replacing Sam Darnold, I think the new head coach is going to have a huge say on that. I think that is going to be a really key decision by the new head coach, whether he wants to replace Darnold or go with a new quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets are pretty coy about it throughout the process because they don't want to submarine the trade value for Sam Darnold by saying they're definitely getting rid of him. So I wouldn't be surprised if they say, have articles coming out that, we like Sam, and maybe they end up sticking with him and building around him, or maybe they replace him. But the new coaching staff, I think it's going to be really key is to see how they react to Sam Darnold, and then we'll get maybe some clarity. 3rd overall pick, I have the Dolphins taking Gregory Rousseau, defensive end from Miami. The Dolphins could use another receiver, but I think this is a little high for the receivers in the draft. They could use an edge rusher across from Emmanuel Ogbah. Rousseau, local kid, would be a great fit in that defense, would bring some more size, speed, and quarterback hunting to that unit. So I think that would be a nice pick for Miami. And also Jalen Phillips, the other end from Miami. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts rising up here. So another name to watch in that discussion. 4th overall pick, I have the Falcons taking Justin Fields, quarterback from Ohio State, bringing the local boy back home. Atlanta needs that long-term franchise quarterback to replace Matt Ryan. It's still going to be a big rebuilding job for that new GM. They are in salary cap hell. It's going to be a tough situation, but maybe they can get creative with the contract to deal Matt Ryan, get him a fresh start somewhere else. Maybe you trade Julio Jones as well. You could look at other veterans that could have trade value like Jake Matthews or Grady Jarrett. Just do a big fire sale and then add a ton of picks and try and do a rebuild similar to Miami. But the Falcons GM, the new one, is inheriting a tough situation there from a salary cap perspective and just the age on the roster. But Fields could be that centerpiece to build around. 5th overall pick, I have the Bengals taking Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Florida. That's not the biggest need on the roster, but in terms of value here, defensive line, offensive line, there isn't a prospect here that's on a par with, say, Pitts or Jamar Chase, even Devontae Smith. So with that being the case, the Bengals have some good receiver talent. T. Higgins has had a nice rookie year. You have Tyler Boyd. who's still playing well when healthy. So receiver is not the biggest need, and they could get, if they wanted more receivers, they could get some good ones on day 2. But Pitts is a super rare prospect. You're not going to get anything like him after the first round. You're not going to see anything like him probably in the next few drafts either. He is a rare prospect and such a dynamic weapon. Would be a great weapon for Joe Burrow. They could use a receiving tight end and mismatch weapon and Pitts out of the tight end position, and Pitts would definitely provide that. So that's, an interesting spot to keep an eye on Cincinnati, because we'll see if their needs kind of mesh up with the talent here as we get further in the process. 6th overall pick, I have the Eagles taking Jamar Chase, wide receiver from LSU, sat out this season. This is just too good a player to pass on for Philadelphia. You get Jalen Hurts or Carson Wentz if they bring him back. You get him a dynamic number 1 receiver. You have Jalen Reagor, the speedster, on the other side. They have tight end talent, make it really difficult for defenses on how they deploy their safeties and who they double team. So Chase could really bring some juice and life to that offense, and he's going to help Miles Sanders as well. He's going to help Philadelphia to run the ball with the speed on the outside that he and Reagor would have. It's really going to do a lot for their offense. 7th overall pick, I have the Lions taking Zach Wilson, the quarterback from BYU. Similar situation to Atlanta. Detroit's facing a rebuild here. Would make sense to trade Matthew Stafford while he still has some good value. Get a pick for him, help the rebuilding process, and Zach Wilson would be the quarterback to build around for the future. Has a good arm, athletic, running ability. Would be a nice quarterback for Detroit to really be their guy in the renaissance of that franchise potentially, but they got to get this GM and head coaching hire correct. 8th overall, I have the Giants taking Devontae Smith, wide receiver from Alabama. This pick makes a ton of sense for New York. They got to get receiver help. They really could use multiple receivers in the early rounds out of this draft. Smith would give them a number 1 receiver they really have not had since trading Odell Beckham. You have Smith, Saquon Barkley, Evan Ingram. Now you're really giving Daniel Jones some weapons to work with. Smith would be a great pick for the Giants. 9th overall, I have the Panthers taking Trey Lance, quarterback from North Dakota State. I think that they like Teddy Bridgewater, but they don't plan on him necessarily as being the long-term guy. I can see them with the way Matt Rule is. He feels he can kind of coach up anybody. You give him the skill set, he can work with it, and Trey Lance has a great skill set, just athletic, great arm, is raw, needs development, only a 1-year starter at a lower level of competition, but you could have him back up Bridgewater for a year, and then they can get out of Bridgewater's contract and move on to Lance. 10th overall pick, I have the Broncos taking Patrick Surtain II. Denver's really needed a number 1 outside corner since Aqib Talib was done with the franchise, and I think Surtain would be a nice value for them here. He'd be a good fit in the Vic Fangio offense, give them some size on the outside, some physicality at cornerback, and a player with upside. 11th overall, I have the Cowboys taking Kwity Paye, defensive end from Michigan. Give them a speed rusher opposite DeMarcus Lawrence. They have some of those veterans, the off-the-field troubled veterans of Randy Gregory and Aldon Smith, but they could use a more long-term answer with a player like Paye, who can also rush from the inside, and the sub-package would really help the Dallas defense in terms of pressuring the quarterback. So you could have him on the field with Lawrence and one of those veterans at the same time, and now you're really sending some speed at the quarterback. So the Cowboys got to improve that defense, and you can almost say just the best defensive player available could be the pick for Dallas. 12th overall pick, I have the Chargers taking Elijah Vera-Tucker, the left tackle from USC, played guard before. Really nice player, good athlete, moves really well, smooth mover, quick feet. could be that left tackle to protect Justin Herbert for the long term here. The Chargers need help on the offensive line and at cornerback, and I think where they're picking here, just outside of the top 10, they should have some good options to address one of those needs. 13th overall, I have the Vikings taking Jalen Phillips, the defensive end from Miami, was a UCLA transfer, has had a phenomenal 2020 season, even in the shortened amount of games. Really tough run defender, pass rush really came on during the season, made some big plays for the Hurricanes. Really impressive player. I think he'd be a really nice fit in Mike Zimmer's defense and give them some youth at end to go across from Donnell Hunter. DJ Wonnum has had a quality rookie year, but he has some limitations. He could be a nice rotational DPR, designated pass rusher kind of player. And now you have a trio. Phillips has some size and strength to really help the Vikings at the point of attack on the edge. 14th overall, I have the Patriots taking Jalen Waddle, the wide receiver from Alabama. Obviously, New England has got to get better weapons in that offense. They need more big plays. They need more home run hitters at wide receiver. I think Waddle would be a great fit there in New England. He could hit the ground running. I wouldn't be at all surprised if you see the Patriots make a play for a veteran quarterback like Matt Ryan or Matthew Stafford, because I think at this point of his coaching career, Coach Belichick, I don't see him taking a quarterback like moving up for like a Trey Lance or something like that. I think where they're picking and with the roster they have, it's a veteran team. I think it would make more sense to get one of those veterans and try and turn it around and get back into the playoffs next season with a Matthew Stafford or Matt Ryan, bring Matt Ryan back to Boston. I think that could make more sense than them moving up for a young quarterback. 15th overall, I have the 49ers taking J.C. Horn, the cornerback from South Carolina. Had a really nice 2020 season, smooth corner, good instincts, runs the route, prevents separation. San Francisco could use an upgrade across from Richard Sherman. Horn and Sherman would be a nice duo, and then in time, when Sherman ages out, Horn could be that number one corner for the 49ers. 16th overall, I have the Raiders taking Micah Parsons, the linebacker from Penn State. I would prefer to have taken an interior pass rusher for the Raiders or an edge rusher, but the edge rushers here, guys like available like Carlos Basham or say, Rashad Weaver, maybe Aiden Hutchinson if he enters the draft. I guess he might go back to school. But those guys aren't the speed demon that the Raiders need. The Raiders have some stout, quality, tough defensive ends in Max Crosby. Cleveland Farrell is that kind of player. He's not that kind of speed edge rusher, and that's what they need. And they need an interior pass rusher. Just not really good value here for the Raiders, but Micah Parsons is a nice value. Linebacker's been an issue for years. Mike Mayock completely blew it when he passed on Devin White for Cleveland Farrell, but Parsons could be a nice upgrade for that defense. Give them a linebacker that can get after the quarterback as well. Parsons is dynamic with what he can do behind the line of scrimmage, explosive linebacker coming downhill. So you could use him in a variety of ways. And it'll be interesting to see who their new defensive coordinator is and the kind of scheme they employ, and maybe that will kind of change up some of the options and, of course, what they do in free agency. 17th overall, I have the Cardinals taking Caleb Farley, the cornerback from Virginia Tech. Farley, really fits that Cardinals profile of a size, speed athlete that has a ton of upside, but has some question marks. He was injured, some serious injuries in college, had a bad 2018 season, was really good in 2019. So he kind of fits that Cardinals big upside athlete prospect that they've been drafting under Steve Keim. They could use a corner across from Byron Murphy in the long haul. Patrick Peterson won't play forever, but in the short term, you'd have a nice, talented trio there, and Peterson would be a great veteran for Farley to watch and learn from. 18th overall, I have the Colts taking Rodarius Williams, cornerback from Oklahoma State. Really experienced player, should be able to contribute quickly. The Colts are ready to win now. They could use a corner across from Rock Ya-Sin. Williams had a really excellent 2020 season, was just glued up to the receivers, did a phenomenal job of running with them and keeping them from getting open. So I think he'd be a really nice pick for the Colts as a player that can come in and contribute quickly. 19th overall, I have the Redskins taking Terrace Marshall Jr., wide receiver from LSU. Obviously, the Redskins need more receiver talent. He'd be a nice big receiver to pair with Terry McLaurin across the field. Marshall would definitely be a nice value for the Redskins if they end up, winning the division here and picking, late in the top 20. If they lose, they're higher in the top 20, then maybe they'd be in that discussion for Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, depending on how that trio shakes out. So big impact on what happens this weekend for Washington in the long term with this draft pick. 20th overall, I have the Bears taking Sam Cosmi, left tackle from Texas. Definitely the Bears could use more offensive line talent. They could use more receivers, but the receivers are off the board. Cosmi could come in. You could play him at guard. You could play him at tackle. Would definitely help Chicago up front, get them more consistent in the ground game and in protecting their quarterback. 21st overall, I have the Jaguars taking Davion Nixon, defensive tackle from Iowa. They've really needed help on the inside of that defensive line. Taven Bryan has not panned out. Nixon has had a really good 2020 season in limited action, and he impressed in 2019 as well as a pass rusher. So he's an interior guy that can get after the quarterback, has a good skill set, upside. He'd be a nice addition to the Jaguars defense. Give them an interior rusher between Chason and Josh Allen, and that could really make a big difference in helping the Jaguars secondary and coverage as well. 22nd overall, I have the Browns taking Carlos Basham, the defensive end from Wake Forest. They need an end across from Myles Garrett. Olivier Vernon could leave the team here this offseason or next offseason. Even if you brought him back, it's just a short-term solution. But Basham would give you a cheap first-round talent across from Myles Garrett. And with the money they spent on Garrett, you're going to need to save some money at some other spots because you're going to have to pay Nick Chubb. You're going to have to pay Baker Mayfield. They're nearing their extensions. So you have a cheap end that's a first-round talent to pair with Garrett. Basham's a tough run defender, can contribute in the pass rush. With Garrett on the other side, he's going to see one-on-one. So I really like that fit for the Browns. Him or these defensive tackles that are available late in the first round, I think would make a lot of sense for Cleveland. 23rd overall, I have the Dolphins taking Andre Sisco, the safety from Syracuse, just a pure ball hawk. Miami could use a safety upgrade, have to replace Rashad Jones from the long haul. Sisco would be a good fit there, would fit Brian Flores' style as well. 24th overall, I have the Ravens taking Zaven Collins, the linebacker from Tulsa. Collins would just be a great scheme fit in Baltimore because he can do so many different things. You can play him at inside linebacker, outside linebacker. He can drop into coverage. He's dangerous rushing the quarterback. Be a great scheme fit there. I don't think the Ravens are going to have the money to be able to sign both Matt Judon and Yannick Ngakoue to extensions. They have some other big contracts. They also have to keep in mind Lamar Jackson is nearing his second contract as well. So definitely I think getting both of those defensive edge rushers back is going to be a tough challenge for Baltimore. So maybe you sign one, get a cheap rookie on the other side on that 5-year contract, and now you have some balance to the defense with some savings. 25th overall, I have the Titans taking Rashad Weaver, the edge rusher from Pitt. Had a really nice season coming off an injury, looked good, healthy, was getting after the quarterback consistently this season, really helped Patrick Jones to a big season there for Pitt. And Tennessee obviously has had edge rush issues the past few years. Vic Beasley didn't pan out. Clowney only signed a 1-year deal. He could leave in free agency, and Weaver would give them more of a long-term answer. 26th overall, I have the Bucks taking Aiden Hutchinson, defensive lineman from Michigan. Would make a lot of sense to help keep Jason Pierre-Paul healthy and fresh for 4 quarters. Same thing with Shaq Barrett. And Hutchinson's versatile. You could play him as a 3-4 defensive end, 4-3 base end, really disruptive player. Now, he might, I've heard some things, he might be going back to school, but, if that was the case, then I think Tampa Bay could consider an edge rusher like Deo Odabingo from Vanderbilt. Similar, tough base end, strong and physical at the point of attack. Can get after the quarterback and as a pass rusher and tough run defender, would help them to keep Pierre-Paul and Barrett fresh for 4 quarters. And then in the long term, you have a long-term starter. Jason Pierre-Paul's getting up there as well. So it makes sense in the short term and long term for Tampa Bay to grab a defensive end early in this draft. And it's going to save them some money rather than signing a veteran in free agency. 27th overall, I have the Jets taking Travis Etienne, running back from Clemson. Obviously, the Jets need a bigger, more potent rushing attack. Etienne isn't a big back, but he is fast. He is a lightning bolt that can rip off yards in chunks. Excellent check down weapon. So whether it's Sam Darnold or another quarterback, Etienne's going to help them with being that receiving back out of the backfield where you get a nice safe throw and you have a playmaker who can turn that safe throw into a 12-15 yard gain and get you a first down. So I think this pick would make a lot of sense for the Jets late in the first round, or Najee Harris early in the second round. I think the running back, edge rusher, wide receiver, there could be some nice values for the Jets there at those picks. 28th overall, I have the Steelers taking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker from Notre Dame. I really have liked this pick for a while. I think it would make a lot of sense with Devin Bush coming off a serious injury, and I think the way the Steelers prioritize that linebacker position, he would be a good fit in that defense. And keep in mind, Bud Dupree's entering free agency. Not this season, but in 2019, Owusu-Koramoah was really good blitzing the quarterback and rushing. So he would help with the potentially losing Bud Dupree to free agency. I would assume that could easily happen, considering you have to do a contract extension for TJ Watt as well before long. So it's going to be tough to afford both of those guys, and obviously you're going to keep Watt. So adding a linebacker that's versatile like Owusu-Koramoah, who can drop in coverage, is excellent in coverage, but also is a dangerous blitzer, that seems like a really good fit and a real, nice kind of Steeler move in the way they kind of build that roster. 29th overall, I have the Saints taking Paris Ford, the safety from Pitt. Malcolm Jenkins is aging. He's gotten picked on some this season. Ford would be a nice fit in that defense. Really good player, can cover slot receivers, can cover tight ends. He'd help them in the division in terms of matching up against Atlanta and Tampa Bay and the receivers at Carolina. So Ford would be a good pick for the Saints late in the first round. 30th overall, I have the Bills taking Christian Barmore, defensive tackle from Alabama. Not the hugest need, but the Bills have a really strong roster. They don't have just glaring needs. They're a well-rounded team. But Barmore is a nice value here because he is a dangerous interior rusher. You put him and Ed Oliver next to each other, and it's going to be really tough on offensive lines because you won't be able to double-team both of them. And Barmore is just dynamic inline rusher that can really get after the quarterback. He and Oliver could help the Bills, just give them some closers to close out games with the way they can get after the quarterback. And the Bills have a good coaching staff that's really good at developing players, young players. So I think they could work with Barmore. It's kind of weaknesses in the ground game, bring him along, and in time he'll be a well-rounded defender for them. 31st overall, I have the Packers taking Alex Leatherwood, offensive tackle from Alabama. He could start out at guard, then eventually be the right tackle there in Green Bay. In the short term, he helps protect Aaron Rodgers. In the long term, he helps protect Jordan Love. If there isn't a good receiver here, I think drawing on this strong offensive tackle class, whether it's him or Slater from Northwestern or Darisaw from Virginia Tech, or Eichenberg from Notre Dame, the Packers are going to have some good options, and all the teams picking late in the first round are going to have some good options on the offensive line. Really, this is a strong year at tackle, and it makes sense. You get better value talent for your team when you draft from the strengths of the draft class. You get just players that would go higher in a typical year, but they get pushed down. I have a video on that from earlier this year. You guys want to check that out, some draft theory for you. 32nd overall, I have the Chiefs taking Shaun Wade, cornerback from Ohio State. Just another versatile defensive back for Kansas City. You can play him at safety. You can be a slot corner, play him on the outside. Would help the Chiefs. They could always use more secondary talent, it seems like, these days. But with their team and their offense playing from the lead as much as they do, having good talent in the secondary to protect that lead and some depth there makes a lot of sense. So the Chiefs could go with a cornerback like Wade there. There could be some other decent options, but we'll see how some of these guys shake out, like Williams, Farley, J.C. Horn, etc. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's mock. I hope everyone had a happy and safe New Year's. Check the links below. I got the link to this mock and Walt's mock and our position rankings and hot press articles and other stuff, features head coaching GM candidates and whatnot. You can follow me on Twitter at Draft Campbell. You can follow Walt on Twitter at Walter Football. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. I'm so grateful to you guys for watching. Thank you so much. You guys take care. I will be back with another mock next week on Saturday. Every Saturday, I put a mock up here, and then during the week, hit on some draft rumors and other things that I'm working on hearing about. That usually goes up Wednesday morning, almost to a T. Wednesday morning, Saturday morning, and Walt has his picks, of course, during the week as well, so you want to check those out. But thank you guys so much for watching. You're awesome. I appreciate you. Take care and be safe, and I'll be back with you soon.